In 1982, a series of events in and around Chicago transformed consumer safety.
September 29, 1982. A day like any other in the city of Chicago until it wasn't. As the sun rose and the city began to stir, little did anyone know that a terror unlike any other was about to unfold. An ordinary citizen reached for a bottle of extra-strength Tylenol, a common remedy for everyday aches and pains. But this was no ordinary capsule. It was laced with a lethal dose of potassium cyanide. As the first victim fell, a wave of shock and confusion swept over the city. Emergency calls flooded the lines, hospitals were thrown into chaos, and families were left grappling with an unimaginable loss. The common thread? A bottle of Tylenol at each scene. The city's trust in a household staple was shattered in an instant. As the day wore on, the horror only deepened. The news spread like wildfire from household to household, from one shocked face to another. As the sun set on that fateful day, the city was left bewildered and terrified. The city was about to be plunged into a nightmare with no idea who the villain was. 7 innocent lives, snuffed out in the blink of an eye. Each one of them, a victim of a random and deadly game of roulette, unknowingly played with capsules of extra-strength Tylenol. The first to fall was Mary Kellerman, a vibrant 12-year-old girl from Elk Grove Village. She woke up early one morning with a slight cold and her parents gave her a Tylenol capsule to soothe her symptoms. Little did they know it was laced with cyanide. Then there was Adam Janis, a postal worker from Arlington Heights. After a hard day's work, he took a Tylenol to ease his mild chest pain. Before long, he was gone. His brother and sister-in-law, Stanley and Teresa, rushed to his home distraught. In their grief, they too took Tylenol from the same bottle. The deadly poison claimed their lives as well. Mary Reiner, a newly minted mother from Winfield, was next. She'd just given birth to her 4th child and was at home recuperating when she reached for a Tylenol to ease her postpartum discomfort. The cyanide-laced capsule took her life. In Chicago's West Side, Mary McFarland, a phone center employee, also fell victim to this invisible predator. A headache led her to take a Tylenol during her lunch break, which tragically became her last. The final victim was Paula Prince, a flight attendant living in Chicago. She was spotted on a surveillance camera purchasing a bottle of Tylenol from a Walgreens store. She too was claimed by the deadly cyanide. Each of these victims, their lives woven into the tapestry of everyday America, were tragically cut short. They were mothers, fathers, siblings, friends, and co-workers. They had dreams, hopes, and futures. Their stories emphasized the sheer randomness of their selection. They didn't know each other, and they had nothing in common except for the fatal decision to take a Tylenol. Their only mistake? Trusting a household brand. The Chicago Police Department was faced with a puzzle like no other. A terror had swept over the city, a silent, unseen murderer whose weapon of choice was a common household item: extra-strength Tylenol. The investigation was a race against time, as every moment that passed could mean another unsuspecting victim. The initial findings were baffling. 7 people, with no apparent connection, all succumbing to sudden and severe illness. The common thread? They had all taken Tylenol, but how could a trusted over-the-counter medication become a lethal killer? The answer lay in the forensic labs, where tests revealed a sinister twist. The capsules were laced with deadly potassium cyanide. This revelation sent shockwaves throughout the nation. A routine act of taking a painkiller had been turned into a deadly gamble. The Chicago police, the FBI, and Johnson & Johnson, the makers of Tylenol, were thrust into the spotlight, grappling with a crisis the likes of which they had never seen. The investigators were relentless, combing through evidence, tracing the victim's every move, every interaction. The Tylenol bottles were collected, the cyanide was traced, but the leads were scant. The murderer had been careful, meticulous. The tampered bottles showed no signs of being opened, no fingerprints, no DNA. The investigators were dealing with a mastermind who had turned the mundane into the macabre. The prime suspect, James Lewis, emerged later, but initially the investigators were left grappling with the unknown. They were looking for a needle in a haystack, a faceless killer who had turned a city into a scene of horror. The lack of concrete leads was frustrating, but it only spurred them on, pushing them to dig deeper, to look closer. The public was on edge, the media was in a frenzy, and the investigators were under immense pressure. But they were determined, leaving no stone unturned. Every Tylenol bottle in Chicago was pulled off the shelves, a painstaking process that reflected the gravity of the situation. But the murderer was elusive, a wisp of smoke that slipped through their fingers. The investigation was like chasing shadows, trying to catch a ghost. They were dealing with a criminal mind that was steps ahead, a phantom who had left no trace, no clues, no breadcrumbs to follow. They were hunting a ghost, a phantom who had left no trace. Every lead seemed to evaporate, every trail led to a dead end. The Tylenol terror had slipped through the cracks, leaving behind a trail of death, fear, and unanswered questions. Enter James Lewis, a man with a sinister smirk and a chilling theory. A figure who would soon find himself at the center of one of the most notorious unsolved cases in American history. Lewis, a man with a criminal past, was the prime suspect in the Tylenol murders that stunned Chicago and the nation in 1982. But who was this man? And what was his connection to the case? James Lewis was no stranger to the dark underbelly of crime. He had a history of extortion, a fact that would later play a significant role in his implication in the Tylenol murders. It was his extortion attempt against Johnson & Johnson, the makers of Tylenol, that first drew the attention of the law enforcement to him. Lewis was a cunning individual, and he demonstrated this in a rather chilling way. He showed the law enforcement how a simple paperclip could be used to tamper with the Tylenol bottles without leaving a trace. It was a demonstration that sent chills down the spines of those present, a stark reminder of the simplicity and ingenuity behind the sinister act that claimed 7 innocent lives. In a shocking twist, Lewis suggested that the murders could have been carried out by teenagers using basic chemistry knowledge. It was a theory that left many baffled, adding another layer of mystery to an already perplexing case. Despite his apparent connection to the case and his criminal history, James Lewis was never convicted of the Tylenol murders. He was, however, found guilty of the extortion attempt against Johnson & Johnson. The question of his guilt in the murders remains a point of contention to this day. Despite the mounting evidence, Lewis was never convicted of the murders, a fact that only adds to the chilling legacy of the Tylenol murders. As we delve deeper into this case, the mystery only seems to thicken, leaving us with more questions than answers. The Tylenol murders sent shockwaves through the nation, forever changing our perception of safety. In the quiet aftermath of the Tylenol murders, a silent revolution was brewing. 7 lives had been cruelly snuffed out by a poisoner's hand, and the nation was left reeling, a sense of safety forever shattered. It was a crime that had invaded the sanctity of our homes, turning a trusted household name into an instrument of death. It was a stark reminder that danger could lurk even in the most mundane corners of life. The pharmaceutical industry was thrust into the spotlight, and the public trust in their products was shaken to the core. The Tylenol murders had exposed a glaring vulnerability in the packaging of over-the-counter medications. The ease with which the killer had tampered with the Tylenol bottles was a chilling revelation. The industry was forced to confront the fact that their packaging was not only inadequate, but also potentially dangerous. In response to this grim reality, sweeping changes were implemented in the packaging of over-the-counter medications. Tamper-evident packaging became the industry standard, a move that was lauded by consumers and health professionals alike. Capsules were gradually replaced by caplets, a form of medication that is more difficult to tamper with. Sealed, tamper-evident packaging became a common sight on pharmacy shelves, a silent testament to the legacy of the Tylenol murders. But the impact of the Tylenol murders extends beyond packaging reforms. It was a crime that eroded public trust in pharmaceutical companies, a trust that was painstakingly built over decades. The murders highlighted the need for greater transparency and accountability from the pharmaceutical industry. It underscored the importance of consumer safety and the dire consequences of failing to protect it. Yet despite these significant changes, the shadow of the Tylenol murders still looms large. The case remains unsolved, the killer's identity a mystery. The prime suspect, James Lewis, passed away without ever being convicted of the murders. His death in 2023 marked the end of a chapter, but not the closure of the case. The Tylenol murders have left an indelible mark on our collective consciousness, a chilling reminder of the fragility of trust and the lurking dangers in the most ordinary of places. The legacy of the Tylenol murders is one of fear, mistrust, and a crime that remains unsolved. Even after all these years, the Tylenol murders remain an open wound in Chicago's history. The case, which has been cold for over 4 decades, has left a haunting legacy of unanswered questions and unresolved grief. The prime suspect, James Lewis, may have been convicted of extortion against Johnson & Johnson, but the actual murders remain pinned on an elusive figure, a phantom in the shadows of our collective consciousness. Despite the FBI reopening the case in 2007, the true identity of the Tylenol terror remains a mystery. Some believe that Lewis, who passed away in 2023, was the true perpetrator. His relaxed demeanor and his snide comments about the police's big blunder certainly paint a chilling picture. However, the lack of concrete evidence has given rise to numerous theories. One such theory suggests that the murders could have been carried out by teenagers with a rudimentary knowledge of chemistry. The victims' families, meanwhile, have been left with a gaping void, a lack of closure that time has done little to heal. The faces of their loved ones, forever etched in the annals of true crime, are poignant reminders of the lives cut short in such a brutal manner. The Tylenol murders case, with its twists and turns, its dead ends and its ghosts, continues to confound and fascinate true crime enthusiasts. Theories continue to swirl, each more unsettling than the last, yet for all the speculation and conjecture, the harsh reality remains. 7 people lost their lives in one of the most horrifying acts of violence in modern history, and their killer may never be brought to justice. The Tylenol murders remain a chilling reminder of the evil that can lurk in the most ordinary of places. As we delve into the darkness of this unsolved mystery, we are left with more questions than answers. The Tylenol murders, a chilling tale that unfolded in the heart of Chicago in 1982, remains a perplexing enigma. 7 innocent lives were abruptly ended, their lives cut short by the sinister machinations of an unknown individual who tampered with over-the-counter medication. The victims were as random as they were unsuspecting, swallowing their doom in the form of cyanide-laced capsules. The prime suspect, James Lewis, was a man whose casual demeanor and audacious comments left a chilling impression. Despite his unsettling confidence, law enforcement couldn't pin the murders on him. Even though Lewis demonstrated how a simple paperclip could have been used to tamper with the medication bottles, he was only convicted of extortion against Johnson & Johnson, the parent company of Tylenol. The actual murders? Those charges never stuck, leaving the case as cold as the hearts of those who lost their loved ones. The nation was left reeling, the trust in medication safety shattered. The fallout from the Tylenol murders led to sweeping changes in the pharmaceutical industry, with tamper-evident packaging becoming the new standard. This legacy, born out of a heinous act, has undoubtedly saved countless lives, but at a cost that can never be forgotten. The families of the victims were left with the daunting task of piecing together their shattered lives, their sorrow forever etched in the annals of Chicago's history. Their pain serves as a stark reminder of the evil that can lurk in the most ordinary of places, a reminder that still haunts the city and indeed the nation to this day. The Tylenol terror, a tale of trust broken, lives shattered, and a mystery that continues to baffle a nation. The echoes of this tragedy continue to reverberate, a chilling reminder of a crime that remains unsolved, a wound that has yet to heal. If you enjoyed this video, then you have to check out this related video next. It's about the unsolved disappearance of Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon in the Panama jungle. Click the video now to learn more.